Right, guys, what's up? I'm gonna do my best to explain as fast as possible, but also hopefully as well as possible, the new stuff we now know about FCS that we didn't know before, all courtesy of Water 111, who's part of the Open Goal team, who are doing their best to rebuild this game as a native PC port. So that's already bearing some fruit. Uh, in the form of information we didn't have about the game just from playing it on official console. So, I guess to start things off with, this is First Box. If you don't know what First Box is, probably should watch an FCS video because this video is going to assume that you know at least a little bit about FCS already, like what we used to think anyway. So this is First Box, top-down view. Um, And now, the very first thing I want to show you is this, which you may have already seen if you've been glancing at the Discord. I'm going to call it a spider. I know it has 7 legs. Sue me. Uh, it's just the best name I could think of, like on the spot. And I've been saying spider for like 48 hours now, so I can't stop. Um, so what does this show? Like, what is this? This is basically uh one of the big things that Water basically gave us is this actually, I should mention, was drawn by Qatar specifically. So thanks to that. Thanks to him for that. Um, this dot in the middle, this is Jack's position. So I can move this around. So this would be Jack standing on top of the box. This would be him on the edge of the bridge over here. So what this shows the checks the game makes uh, when it's bouncing Jack along the lava surface. It doesn't have to be the Fire Canyon surface. This also applies to the spikes in Boggy Swamp and in Geyser, like the spike pits as well. Um, this shows you the checks that it makes. So let me explain a bit more. This blue line it's colored blue because it's the first one that gets checked and it's the forward line. And then this is front left, front right, left right, back right. And you may notice suspiciously there is nothing straight backwards. And I will get into that a bit later. So, uh, when Jack is moving along, uh, every time he hits the ground, in this case, it's Fire Canyon surface, it does checks that look like this. However, it doesn't do them all at once. It does checks along this line first, and it actually does checks along this line twice, and that's actually a bug, and I will get into that again a little bit later. It does checks along this line twice, and then it does, I think, this line, and then this line, and this line, then this line, and this line, and then that line. I think the order's not really that important for this explanation. And what actually is this? Well, you may have noticed that these are not like perfect shapes, and that's because this is loads of pink circles overlapped on top of each other. And so to explain that, I have another one, which is this. And this shows you all the circles. So basically, it starts with this forward-facing line, and it goes, I think it's 2 meters, I want to say, out from the center. So where Jack's position is, it goes 2 meters out, and there it places the center of a circle. It is actually, I think it's a cylinder or a sphere in like the 3D space, but in this picture it will just be a circle. It goes out 2 meters and places a circle with radius 2.5 meters. So the first circle overlaps Jack's position. It's sort of like a circle like that. I mean, yeah, all of these circles have a radius of 2.5 in-game meters. And so it goes out there, places a circle, and then it basically checks to see if there is any overlap between that circle and any polygon that is considered a safe, like, ground spot. So, for example, the top of a box, or the flat bit of ramp, or an eco vent, something like that. And if it doesn't detect anything, then it moves 1 meter forward along the line and does another circle. So that's why they all overlap so much. It's because they have a radius of 2.5, but they're only separated by 1 meter. So they overlap quite a lot. And it goes all the way out until these lines are 10 meters long, 10 in-game meters long. I think for reference, Jack is like 3 meters tall or something, even though he looks tiny. The game world of Jack is like, yeah, it's like the number systems are all enlarged for some reason. But yeah, these lines are all 10 meters long. So the last circle is centered 10 meters away from Jack's position. And if it checks all of these circles in order from the first one around here all the way out to this last one, if it checks all of them and gets nothing, then it will move on to the next leg. Although, as I said, it checks this forward leg twice. So it'll check it once, then check it twice, and then it'll go top right, top left, right, left, back right, back left. I think that's the order. Yeah, and and then if it does over any of these circles, for example, right here, if any of these circles do overlap with this box, then you'll get pulled into the location on the box that overlaps with these circles. You'll get pulled in that direction. It's important to note that you don't necessarily get pulled to the box for some reason, and I'm not actually sure why that is at the moment, but it's not really that important for this explanation. All you need to know is you get pulled in the direction of this overlap here. So in this case, I would get pulled towards this point. Maybe I can draw a little. I get pulled to that point. And usually what happens is you end up overshooting to somewhere like here. Yeah. So that's how this spider works. Now, I told you that this blue line is forward. And how does it determine what forward is? Now, you're probably thinking maybe there are two ways it does this, and you may have thought of both of them or one of them. And those two ways are like this. So the first case is when Jack is moving, this first one, and specifically that is he's moving more than 1.1 meters per second. When he hits the ground. I should note that this spider thing only like matters or it doesn't ever get drawn visually because we never see it, but in the background it only happens when Jack hits the ground. It's not relevant when he's in the air. So when he hits the ground moving at more than 0.1 meters per second, the spider orientates itself so that forward is the direction Jack is moving. So that's fairly intuitive, right? So, for example, if I was approaching the box head on, then this is what the spider would look like. The blue line would be looking directly at the box, and then when I get overlaps, I would get pulled in around here, like that. Now, it's important to note that it's not the direction your sticks are pointing. It is the direction that Jack's velocity is pointing. So like whatever momentum he has, if you want to think about it like that. Which is why you can't just like turn your stick at the last minute and have it have a massive impact on how this works. Now the second case is when Jack is stationary, which specifically means when he is moving less than 0.1 meters per second when he hits the ground. If that is the case, then the spider orientates itself so that forward is the direction Jack is facing. So, in other words, TLDR is if you're moving, the direction you're moving is what matters. If you're not moving, the direction Jack is facing is what matters. That's it. That's the big point of how this spider works. So, for example, if I was not moving but I was facing directly away from the box, spider would look like. Excuse me, why can I not move you? There we go. That's what the spider would look like if I was approaching it and every time I touched, if I was touching the ground and not moving, like near the box, that's what it would look like if I was facing directly away from it. You see, this arrow is the the quote unquote forward facing line, not arrow, line. And so this gap in the back here you can see there's no overlap, which basically means you can be a lot closer to any solid, flat, safe or ground spot if you're facing backwards, or if you're traveling away. Like for example, if you stood on the box, and anybody messing around with debug it may have done this. If you stand on the box and then you double jump and then land on the lava surface here, you won't get pulled in, and that's for the exact same reason. It's that even though you're pretty close to the box, you're traveling away from it, so the spider orientates itself like this, and the box doesn't overlap because it's in this big gap at the back. It's like this blind spot behind this forward direction. So that's why you can literally just be on the box and double jump off it and then escape and never get pulled in. So yeah. Now, that's the crux of this new information, really. That's how the getting pulled in works. There is a slight nuance to it, and one of the little details I decided not to mention earlier is that the very first time one of these circles overlaps with a safe spot, I'm just going to call it a safe spot, or a ground spot, I should say, it ignores it. I don't know why. I don't know if there was ever an explanation as to why it ignores it, but it just does. So if you only overlap with the very outer circle, like here, you won't get pulled in, because this is the first one that overlaps and it ignores it. So that is another thing to know. Because of how much they overlap, a lot of the time, if you overlap one, you're going to overlap two. But obviously there are cases where that isn't, where you do only overlap one circle, which is why you can get a little bit closer than it would seem, but not a lot. Like you can see, it's barely much difference there between yeah, the different cases. So like right here, you would get pulled in because the first circle would ignore, but then the second one would be overlapping as well, and so you'd get pulled in. So I'm going to try and use this now to explain two different new ways we have of doing first box. The first one is going to be courtesy of HS Blue, and I guess we could call this the tiptoe strat. I think maybe he was the one who said tiptoe. Seems fair to me. And basically, you may notice what he is doing here is he is very, very slowly inching his way along the bridge. And what he's doing is every time he touches the ground, he is not moving. He's only moving in the air a tiny amount so that when he hits the ground, he's not moving. And because of that, the facing excuse me, the facing direction of Jack is the important thing, not the direction he's moving. So if I come back to this diagram, if we look and see what direction Jack is facing, like that, he's facing almost perpendicular to the bridge. So I'm actually just going to get rid of the one with circles for now. So he's not facing exactly perpendicular. He's a little bit off, but it's like very close to perpendicular. And when I'd say this blue line is like almost perpendicular to the bridge edge. So what he's doing is he's coming along like this. He's slowly inching along, and the spider is orientated like this whenever he hits the ground because he's not moving. Again, a reminder that we're in this second case right here. So he's slowly inching forward, and it may be the case, I can't see, but it may be the case that he overlaps a bit with this circle. But remember, as I said, only the second circle you overlap in a check actually matters. Because in this case, you can see that he would only be overlapping with this very outer circle. Maybe I should be using the other one. I will just use the other one. Oh, come on. No. Right, come on. I don't know what the hell's going on with my... I'm just going to undo until I can see. right? Let's lock that. So he's like more or less like that. We're never gonna know exactly, but he's inching along like this slowly, and then at this point you can see he is probably overlapping the very outer circle, but he's just about managing to only overlap that outer circle, so nothing happens. And then he gets past, like, that's the hardest part of it. It's around this area is where you're barely scraping past without getting pulled in. And then at this point, he's abusing this big open space at the back, which that's going to be a common theme. The way to abuse this new information we have is basically to abuse this big open space in the back. Which I guess I never really mentioned, but basically Water thinks that it's a bug, that instead of, for some reason, it checks this forward line twice, and we think that maybe, I don't know, somebody copy pasted something wrong, or I don't know, but either way they have two forward facing lines and they don't have a backwards one instead, whereas obviously what they wanted is they wanted one for each of these 8 directions, but they messed it up somehow, so lucky us. So yeah, he inches along like this. Every time he touches the ground he's not moving, he just about squeezes past, and then you do have quite a big area to play with here. You see, like, you can be in any of these points, and as long as you're not moving when you hit the ground and you're facing the right way, you won't get pulled in. So he gets to about, as you can see, when he's pointing this much left, he can go quite far. Like, he can go this far past the box and still be fine. But it's pretty hard to see when you're in game, like, when that's going to happen. But either way, I think he gets to about here, maybe, which I think he probably could have gone further, but he didn't know that. And then he decides to go for a final, like, big bounce. So he gets about level with the box on the bridge and then stops. And then now he's going to switch from, he's going to go for this curved, like, yeah, this like S shape movement. And what he's doing there is he's switching from the stationary case to the moving case. So he makes sure that he doesn't move until after he's hit the ground, and then he starts to move in. So he's like here. Go away. So he's like here, and he starts to move like this, and then curls back around like so, and then he hits the ground again here. And if you know anything about FCS, you'll know that the visually where the bridge is not where the bridge actually is. Like, you can land out here where it doesn't look like you can land, because the hitbox extends a bit further. So he starts here. This is where he was last doing the stationary stuff, and then he does this curved movement in the air to land here. And if we bring back the spider again, yeah, I guess I can use this one. So now, because he is, oh my god, because he is moving when he hits the ground, we're in the first case, this first case, where the spider orientates itself along this forward line along the direction Jack is moving. So that's what it looks like. And as you can see, it's obviously not going to be as clean as this, because he almost certainly is moving like a bit more like that direction, which is why it's harder than, yeah, this is why it's quite hard, because it's quite hard to move out like this and curve back in enough in order to avoid the hit getting pulled into the box. But this is basically what it looks like. So he's moving in this direction as close as he can be to moving directly away from the box. If you ever want to be safe, you want to be moving away from the box, exactly, which is a lot of the time harder, easier said than done. And so as you can see, he's safe because he's got no overlaps, and then he goes for a further curve, like so, because at this point he's about to fly off the edge of the bridge, so he has to curve back in and land again on the very edge of the bridge. somewhere around there. And by this point, it doesn't really matter which direction you're moving in, because you're far enough away, as you can see. No matter how I spin this, if I could spin it, no matter how I spin this, like, it's not gonna overlap with the box, so we're fine. So just to recap, and I'll recap it as we watch this again. So he's tiptoeing up to the box, facing almost directly, like, off the bridge. Every time he hits the ground, he's not moving, so the spider is orientating itself based on where Jack is facing. And he gets to about level with the box, although I think in theory he could have gone a tiny bit further, but not much further. And then he waits until after he lifts off the ground again, and then goes for this S-shaped bounce, like curve, so that when he hits the ground the first time, he's moving away from the box enough so that he doesn't get pulled in. And then by the time he bounces again, he's safe. So that's the one method that we have, new method. And the hardest part of that, it has to be said, is probably the tiptoe on the way up, I would say, because it's quite tight, as you saw when I was giving this explanation here. Like, you get pretty damn close, and if I did it with the rings, you would see that the second ring is very, very close. So you have to get a pretty precise facing angle on Jack, which is not always the easiest thing to do. And then you have to be very careful that you never move when you hit the ground, it's quite easy to accidentally do that, to be honest, because you have to be moving incredibly slowly for it to count as not moving, or just, yeah, not moving at all. So that is the first new method we have. The second one is courtesy of me, so let's give it a watch. And this one, I should say, is entirely working on the principle of the first case where Jack is moving. At no point in this clip am I going to be not moving when I hit the ground. So as you can see, that's pretty fast. That's one of the fastest ones I've done doing this. And basically what's going on is, again, every time I hit the ground, you can watch my input viewer. Every time I hit the ground, I am moving as best I can away from the box. So I'm like moving forward and left here, and then only slightly. So let's see if we can catch that on the, you see, on the input viewer. It's annoying that it goes dark like this, but I'm moving up left to move myself along the bridge, and then almost immediately I'm going back right to cancel that momentum and to pull Jack back away from the box before I hit the ground, and then again immediately up left, and then back right. Up now you sort of have to change it up a bit as you're going around the box. I'm doing sort of side or straight to the left with a little bit down, and then here this is me trying to make sure I'm moving away from the box when I hit the ground. Because again, it's not where the stick's facing, it's where Jack is moving. So you have to do a lot of corrective movements. You can't just point your stick away from the box just soon, like before you land, because that won't change Jack's velocity enough to be successful. So that's why, despite the fact that I am, if you look right here, you would think, like right here, I can sort of, you would think maybe I could just pull straight back on the stick to move Jack away from the box. But because I'm traveling to the left, I have to cancel that left momentum as well. Otherwise, it will affect which direction the spider is facing. So that's why I have to do back right rather than just straight back. But yeah, now that we've seen that a few times, I will try and explain it again using these. And it's using similar principles, but it is different. So the direction Jack is facing doesn't matter because again, I never hit the ground and like in a and I'm stationary at the same time. So basically, it's gonna look like this for a lot of it. So I come in, and around here is when I start to do it. I sort of start let's say around like here, please. Around here. Then, I don't know, like here. And then something like that, I think. And the movement that I'm doing in the air looks a bit like, so I sort of come here, and then the movement is going to look a bit like that. Except it has to be noted you can't completely, because I'm actually moving. I have to redraw this a bit. So I come out like this, or it's probably more like that. And then when I hit the ground here, I am moving this, or like this way, like that way. And I sort of have to curve back round. I sort of have to curve back round and then do the same thing again. Make sure I'm moving away. And then that. And then like that. So it's a very weird looking movement. But again, the premise is that I am making sure I am moving away from the box enough every time I hit the ground. And that is, we bring the spider back so that this big open space is nearest to the box. So first bounce is, this one's probably irrelevant, but this one is going to look something like that, probably. So I land like somewhere like that, and you can see there's no overlap. Then I do this movement, and the spider will be spinning all over the place in the air. But then once I hit the ground again, it will be orientated again similarly, probably something like that. So again, still safe. And then the weird movement again in the air. This is definitely the hardest one to do, because you have to cover such a big distance, but also change your you're changing your. Oh, I changed my camera angle at the same time as well. So at this point, I'm probably like somewhere like that. This is pretty similar to one of the like the bounce around here on Blues, in Blues video. So I'm like that, still moving away from the box, and then this last one is like, it probably is safe, but if it isn't safe, it's like I'm probably orientated like in a way that you can see here. Maybe only the outer circle overlaps or something like that. So I'm fine, you know. It doesn't matter how I'm orientated. Either way, that's how my new method works for getting past the box. I hope that was clear. I don't know if it was particularly, but yeah. Again, so I'm abusing purely this first case where, as long as if you're moving and you're moving directly away from the box, you have a pretty good chance of not getting pulled in to it. It's there is a limit, of course, because the pink area does stick out the back a little bit. So like, you know, if you approach it and you get this close, you are going to get pulled in, even though you're facing away from the box. So, and yeah, and so likewise here, if you're facing like mostly away from the box, you can still get pulled in. You could also still be fine. It's very hard to visualize this unless you spend a bit of time honestly messing around in some kind of software with this image, and a picture of first box is quite helpful, I think. Water has actually created it's effectively a different version of the Open Goal PC port, where you basically have a 3D version of this permanently being drawn. Like he's actually drawing the checks that the game is making. He's actually made it so they are visible all the time. in that version. So you can ask. I know I asked Zed to help me, although I'm sure it's quite a long process. So maybe he doesn't want to help literally everybody set this up. But there are a few people who know how to do it. I am not one of them, so don't ask me. I just followed along with what people told me to do to get it working. So yeah, that could be if you really want to like play around with this in open goal, then I would recommend using that because it literally shows you like this spider uh, working as you bounce along. It's very cool. So I hope that explained the stuff we know. And I used first box as an example because it's considered to be the hardest part of FCS, and it's so far the thing we've explored the most with this new information. But yeah, I'm sure we're gonna apply this to second box, ramp, maybe eco crates, all the rest eventually. So yeah, that was that.